All right. Well, good afternoon. Remax Integra, agents, broker owners, ladies and gentlemen. So strange to be joining you in a Zoom setting. But I think we're all doing a lot of Zooming right now. It's kind of become a way of life, a way of meeting, and a way of keeping our business going. So I'm absolutely it's also brought us some efficiencies and at a time when we're really asked to stay apart, I think it's given us the ability to stay uniquely together. There's so many things that we're learning and have learned in the last 30 days that I believe will become a habit. And I think they're going to bring us more real estate efficiencies. So I can't wait to see what it's going to be like when we get out of this, which of course we will. We just don't know when yet, but it's coming. The rainbow's there. We absolutely know that. Well, we know who our great friends are at times like
Fiona, it's still a minute two. So why don't we wait until give him another couple of minutes to log in before we go to the actual thing.
Absolutely.
We are live, but we don't have to get started just yet. Let's let everybody, I don't want anyone to miss your beautiful introduction of how nice I am.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll make sure that nobody misses Steve, how nice you are. Everybody knows how nice you are. You're awesome. Oh my goodness. Well, we've got 100 people in climbing. So I think we're going to have a nice group of agents and broker owners to listen to your inspiring words. I will tell you that I think it's like a business, a growing business to be had in all these virtual backgrounds. I was saying that to David earlier. Who would have thought 30 days ago that our big deal was going to be what should we put on our background of our Zoom screen, right?
That's right.
It's quite surreal. I can tell you I have about 7 or 8 now different backgrounds that I flip depending on where I am, right?
Yeah, I like the one you have up right now. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's actually pretty nice. Remax LLC made these, and we have a COVID resource center, and it's housed there. But I'll share with you the one that I used after hours. Yep, there you go.
Oh, look at this.
Right? My friend there looks after me at 6 o'clock, right?
That is great.
Pretty cool. That's
But you've got to have fun, man. You've got to smile. You've got to have fun. I always say that fear does not, and anxiety cannot coexist with smiles and levity. So I'm all about that.
We're past the top of the hours, Fiona, so whenever you would like, please feel free to get started.
Fantastic. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I thought, you really get to know who your friends are when you go sort of through these storms, like the one we're going through right now. And Steve, you have been such a great friend to Integra over the years, and David, and I can't thank you enough for taking some of your extremely valuable time to sort of share some really important points about sort of where we're at and where we're headed and how are we going to come out of this and what is our duty to our customers, to our community in terms of leading them through this turmoil. I call it nesting in a storm. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your leadership, for your friendship, David and Steve Harney. Steve, you're just, you own Keeping Current Matters. You're the founder there. David, I know that you provide incredible insights and data mining and do all sorts of research. And so I think it's so important right now that we're armed as real estate professionals with the information that can really demystify or help to give a sense of peace and calm to our customers as we go through a very, very difficult time that we've never experienced. So thank you, Steve. Thank you, David, and welcome. And it's all yours.
Thank you.
All right, well, I want to say thank you, Fiona. Thank you to the leadership team and the ownership team at Remax Integra. If it wasn't for you, obviously we wouldn't be sharing our message right now. I do want to start this by saying that I'm not going to really talk a lot about the coronavirus here outside of how it applies to real estate. because it's not that I'm dismissing that issue. I don't want anyone thinking that, or thinking less importantly of that issue. For those who don't know and can't tell by my accent, I was born and raised in New York and lived there up until just a couple of years ago. I still have friends and family there, and I'm still dealing with the situation some of their friends and families are dealing with right now up in New York. So I don't want you thinking I'm not conscious of what's taking place, or that in any way I'm dismissing it. However, I'm pretty sure that no one on this call is going to come up with the vaccine for the coronavirus. And I'm pretty sure that no one here is going to come up with the best treatment for the coronavirus. Well, the only thing that we can do is control what we can control. So there are two different crises in the country right now. The first crisis is being the health crisis that Dr. Fauci and his team are doing everything they can to try to mitigate, is the word he likes to use. I want to look at the other crisis of brewing in this country right now, and that's the financial crisis, because we are the Dr. Fauci's of that crisis. Everyone believes that when the handling of the crisis is over, business is going to come back, and how strongly it comes back is going to be determined a lot by the people on this call. Because when I got on this call, this is what I knew. When I got on this Zoom meeting, this is what I knew. I'm talking to the best and brightest real estate professionals in the industry. RE/MAX Integra has had a long history, all right, of being those people that neighbors and neighborhoods could depend on, especially in times of crisis. So I know the army of agents and leaders in this organization are going to help bring back the economy on the other side, and are actually helping right now, even with one in some communities, two hands tied behind their back. So I want to say thank you to that, and let you know I'm proud of every one of you, and I'm excited to be part of you. All right, now what we want to try to cover today, David, put up the slide. We know you're getting hit with 5 questions that are pretty hard. All right, 4 from your consumers, and 1 might be an internal question. When is the economy going to recover? Are we going into a recession? Is this going to be like 2008 all over again? What about all those job losses? And what should you do right now? That's the internal question. So we're going to try to answer those 5 questions to the best of our ability right now. But I want everyone to understand that there are no perfect answers to any of those questions. The only thing we can give you is the best information, the best answer available at this moment in time. This is a moving target. Just as Dr. Fauci, who's handling the health crisis, will tell you, I can't give you an exact date. I can't tell you exactly what's going to take place right after that date. But I can get pretty close, and I can get you what we know to be the answer right now, but just deal with us as the situation evolves. That's what we're doing right now. Our KCM members and people who subscribe us, Dave meets with them 3 times a week, because we know that you have to keep abreast of what's taking place in this rapidly information moving market. All right. But right now we're going to try to give you the answers to these questions so you can better answer the questions your consumers might have. And let's start off, when is the economy going to recover? Question number 1. When we answer this question, we want to look at 2 different things. What are the analysts calling for, and what does science tell us? So first off, let's take a look at what the analysts are calling for. What we see is Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and Morgan Stanley, and we just received late last night, we haven't been able to put it up on the graph yet, 2 other major financial institutions that have come out to say, you know what? It looks like it's going to be a long, scary ride down for the next 60 days, all right? But then it's going to be an exhilarating ride up. There's a V to this. So what that means is, back in 2008, we had a tennis ball and we threw it on the ground. That tennis ball was dead. It didn't bounce back up. It just rolled away from us. This is a real tennis ball. We're going to throw it on the ground. It's going to hit the ground and bounce back up again in a V-shaped type of recovery. And every one of the financial analysts, and remember, these people handle trillions of dollars for the most wealthy people in the world. And the most wealthy people in the world are taking their advice. So when people say, well, is this good advice? I don't know. The wealthiest people in the world seem to think so. All right. So all of them are saying virtually the same exact thing. We're going to go down hard at the beginning. Everybody, buckle your seatbelts, keep your arms inside the car. And if you have a helmet, put it on, because it's going to be a wild ride now. And there are going to be crazy headlines over the next 60 days. But please, ladies and gentlemen, don't you nor allow your clients to be scared of those headlines. I received an email earlier this morning from an agent, and in the headline was, real estate sales through the second half of March collapse. And this agent called me up all upset, like, oh my God, look at this headline. And I said, all right, write down these 7 words. This is what I told the agent. I'll tell you this right now too. You'll need these 7 words. Calm down, sit down, think, plan, act. Write those words down, and wherever your home office is, I don't care if it's in your closet, I don't care if it's in your dining room, put that up someplace you can see it, because you're going to see a lot of crazy headlines over the next couple of months. And you can't let that get you rattled, because even this headline, well, home sales are down. Practically the whole country is is in an order to stay in place, to stay in your home during a pandemic. Of course, sales are down. That's not news. We knew that. We knew that was going to happen a month ago. So why are we getting rattled by it now? We have to make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that we let our clients know that the news isn't going to be real good. The headlines are not going to be real good for the next little bit. But then we also have to let them know that it's going to go the other way before the end of the year. And that's what we have to keep our eyes on. And this is what the analysts are projecting. But there's also science behind this. As a matter of fact, the Harvard Business Review just came out explaining that it's worth looking back at history to place the potential impact path of COVID-19 empirically. In fact, V-shapes, the type of recovery, monopolized the empirical landscape of prior shocks, including epidemics such as SARS, the 1968 flu, and the 1958 H2N2, and even a 1918 Spanish flu. So Harvard went back and studied what happens to economies after a pandemic. Their research said what? It's going to be a V-shape. Exactly what the analysts are saying. And secondly, let's talk about housing. John Burns Consulting, a big consulting firm for some of the biggest developers in the country of residential real estate, they did their own study. And their conclusion was historical analysis, again, the science behind it, showed us that pandemics are usually V-shaped, sharp recessions that recover quickly to provide little damage to home prices. And some very cutting-edge search engine analysis by our information management team, that's from John Burns Consulting, showed the current slowdown is playing out similarly thus far. The 3 major analysts, as a matter of fact, we're going to add 3 other very powerful analytic firms saying the same exact thing in the very near future, probably tomorrow. And 2 studies have shown that, yes, we're in for a wild ride now, down, but it's going to be really exciting coming up the other side. And we have to prepare for coming up the other side. Now, when we're talking about prices, well, what really is going to happen with prices? The best person I can go to on this is Ivy Zellman from the Z Report. In her report that came out, I think it was 10 days ago, this is what she said. She's an analyst that looks at residential real estate, and she's an analyst that has some of the largest real estate entities in the country subscribe to her service. Supported by an analysis of home price dynamics through cycles and other periods of economic and housing disruption, we expect home price appreciation to decelerate from current levels in 2020, though easily remain in positive territory year over year, given the beneficial factors of record low inventories and historically low interest rate environment. What is she saying? Yes, how quickly houses are going up in value will slow down, but we will not see depreciation. It will remain in positive territory. As a matter of fact, when she did, and she's the first and only to this point that we know of, look at her analysis pre the pandemic and post the pandemic, taking that into consideration, this is what we see. The light blue bars are what she originally projected coming into 2020 for appreciation this year. She hadn't yet predicted 2022. She would have done that at the end of the first quarter. We can see that she originally projected 4.7% appreciation this year, kind of in line with what we saw last year. All right, now she's adjusting that to we're only going to see 3% appreciation this year. Next year, she originally called for 3.8%. But she knows when that flood of buyers come out later this year, that's going to impact the end of this year and going into next year. And she raised her projection to 4.6. And more importantly, in 2020, it's going to go back to where we are today. So what are we saying? The single most important part of this graph are there are no red bars, none. Nobody, she's not projecting the depreciation. And nor do we have the other analysts that we talk to, none of them are saying they're looking at depreciation. They're talking about appreciation will decelerate. There's a big difference between those two things. So if you have buyers out there saying, well, I'm going to wait. Well, I know that this is a mess and prices have to come down. Just say, whoa, this is what we know for certain. You have great interest rates right now. Hopefully that will continue. We're not sure of that. But what we're pretty sure of, if you're looking for a fire sale, that's not going to happen. Now, part of the reason they would think that is they're saying, well, I hear we're going into a recession. So I want to give this to David for the second question. And hold on one second, David. Some people, after the first part of this, think that, well, Steve, you're too optimistic. You're being unrealistic. Ladies and gentlemen, we're giving you the facts and the science behind the facts. We're giving you the projections and the predictions of the most competent people in our industry. Go to that next slide, David. And what we're going to do right now is not tell you that we're going to avoid a recession. That's what a Pollyanna would tell you. What David's about to tell you is we're already in a recession. So when people say, well, I'm being too optimistic, there are some people who are going to switch and now say we're being too pessimistic. We're not trying to deliver good news or bad news to you. We're trying to deliver the news to you. Because this is what we think of you as a group. RE/MAX Integra has the best agents in the country, some of the greatest agents in the country in their midst. We trust you. We trust you enough, we trust your intelligence enough to tell you the truth. And you'll know what to deal with, how to deal with that. And that's how you should deal with your clients also. Tell them the truth, trust their intelligence. So David came onto our firm about 3 years ago. He gave me great counsel while I was helping you guys back in 2008. Those who don't know me, because you weren't around back then, welcome. Hi, I'm Steve. For those who do know me, realize that just like we helped you then, stood by your side, didn't cut and run, we were right with you through that whole process, we'll be with you through this whole process. David helped me back in 2008 with a lot of things I didn't understand. And I tried to get him to come to KCM for a lot of years after that. 3 years ago, he decided to jump in. But what he insisted upon, I want a research team there. I want a graphics team there. I want people so that we're bringing KCM to another level that we can explain exactly what's taking place. And David, I thank you for raising the standard to us and bringing us to a place now that I am so confident when I'm giving KCM's message. It's not good news, it's not bad news, it's the news. And your clients deserve to hear the news.
Right.
David, why don't you talk about a recession then?
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve, and thank you for that. And thank you, Fiona, for having me as a part of this conversation and along with Steve. And, this question of are we going into recession, I would set up this way. What is a recession? So the definition, widely held definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP or constriction in growth. And really, I would also offer that a recession really is a name put upon an economic slowdown. When someone says recession, they're essentially saying the economy is slowing down. So what do we know? In the towns, cities, and states that we live in, we know the economy is slowing down. Now, what analysts are going to say is we can't call a recession until those 2 quarters are complete. And in what we know from what Steve shared with us, most of the analysts are saying, hey, we're going to see negative GDP in the first quarter due to the shelter in place, due to people not being able to go out and conduct business and all the things that we know are being impacted. And we know this wild ride down in the second quarter that we will see a constriction or an economic slowdown in that. So is it safe to say we're in a recession right now? Yes. Are people going to say, well, you can't say that until the end of the second quarter? Yes. But my bet is when they look back, they're going to say we're in a recession already. And so having the information to be able to have that conversation is critical, like Steve said in today's conversation with the headlines that people are saying. And as GDP is released here towards the end of the month, that is going to heat up. It is coming. But what I would start out as this premise is recession does not equal housing crisis. And just like Steve used just a few minutes ago, I want to talk about what we're seeing and what we've seen in the past in recessionary environments. But let's talk about where people are at. And I pulled this quote from Mark Fleming, who's the chief economist at First American. And he says, many still bear scars from the Great Recession and may expect the housing market to follow a similar trajectory in response to the coronavirus outbreak. But there are distinct differences, and we're going to get into those in a minute, that indicate the housing market may follow a much different path. And while housing led the recession in 2008 and 2009, this time it may be poised to bring us out of it. So what's Mark saying there? When people we do business with, and many of us maybe, when we hear the word recession, we think 2008. We think, here we go again. And what we know about 2008 is that our business, and many of us that lived through that, either in the business or as a consumer, our business was at the epicenter of it. And there was a lot of devastation in 2008. There were a lot of jobs lost. There was, people lost their homes, financial loss, unemployment, no doubt about that. But yet, the first line here, many still bear scars. Just think about that. We think about that when we hear the word recession. And so it's critical that we start to look at, and Steve mentioned the KCM research team, which I give 100% of the credit to, in coming up with this information to help you show people that you're working with what's happened in the past in this country when we've hit a recession. And I want to go to another quote from Doug Bryan. It says, with the exception of two recessions, the Great Recession of 2007 and 2009, what we just talked about, and the Gulf War recession of 1990-91, no other recessions have impacted the U.S. housing market according to Freddie Mac's Home Price Index. And that's data collected from 1975 to 2018. So when we go all the way back to 1975 to today, and we look at the landscape of economic slowdowns, ups and downs in this country, there are two that have impacted the housing market negatively. That's the recession of 2008 and the recession of 1990 and 91. And that's coming from Freddie Mac's Home Price Index. So what our team also did at that point is we looked at another source. We looked at CoreLogic's National Home Price Index. And what does it say? If we start from the left here, we see 2008, and boy, do we remember that. Almost 20% depreciation across the country in home values. But when we start to look beyond that, starting with 2001, going to 91, 81, and 1980, the four previous recessions, in three of those, home prices actually appreciated. We see the same thing in 1991 that I mentioned earlier. We saw depreciation, slight depreciation there. Nothing like 2008, but depreciation. And so what can we confidently say in this is that recession does not equal housing crisis. It doesn't equal housing depreciation. And we can bring in the past to point the way forward. And when we start to see, and when you start to see, when you bring this message to your clients, and you're able to show them, here's what CoreLogic's saying, here's what Freddie Mac's saying, based on past data, we can clearly make that argument that in the past five recessions, three of those recessions, homes have actually gained value. But what we all remember is 2008. So
that's 100% true. That's 100% true. And that's where we're going to go to the third question. David, put up the third question. You're going to have people asking you, I don't care what you say about recessions. I remember 2008, and that's what we're going back to right now. Prices are going to drop 25%. And it's hysteria. Yep. But there are big differences between now and 2008. And again, David and his crack research team actually went through things that make it different than 2008. And David, why don't you share that information with us? Because the agents are definitely going to get smacked with that question if they aren't already.
Right. So what we wanted to do here is we wanted to take a look at today's market as compared to 2008 and give you a few markers along the way that you can have this conversation by, just like Steve mentioned. So the first one we want to take a look at is appreciation. So on this slide, what you see on the left side is you see the 6 years leading up to the housing crash. And on the right side, you see the 6 years leading up to today. And what can you tell right there, just looking at it, that appreciation leading up to the housing crash is much higher than today. And while we've had appreciation leading up to today, nowhere near what we saw leading to the housing crash. When we would say at that time, we had runaway appreciation that led to a lot of the issues that we faced in 2008. In another interesting piece here, the highest year in 2017 is not even equal to the lowest year leading up to the crash. So critical as we look at appreciation, we look at the fundamentals of the market heading into this and how they were different from 2008. The second thing we want to look at is credit availability, specifically for mortgage financing. And for that, we look at the Mortgage Bankers Association Mortgage Credit Availability Index. Easy way to think about this. The higher the index, the easier it is to get a loan. The lower the index, the harder it is to get a loan. So what do you see? In the housing bubble, very high, very easy to get a loan. There was a joke back then that it was oftentimes hard not to get a mortgage loan back pre-2008 leading into the housing crash. And what do we know in our business at that time? We saw this pendulum swing in guidelines and the things it took to qualify for a home loan got much stricter. And we've largely remained there today. And we've even seen this month over month start to dip down a little bit and guidelines get tougher and qualification for a home loan get tougher broadly across this country. But the question out there in consumers' minds, and many times they're thinking this or have read this somewhere, is that it's just as easy today to get a loan as it was back in 2008, or those products have come back to the market, or this is happening. And this gives us a picture across the country as to the guidelines and the things that make up credit availability. The next one is a very telling graphic, and it's a stark difference today versus 2008. And that's the months of inventory for homes for sale. And what we know leading into 2008 is we had an oversupply of homes on the market. Literally, if we take this balanced or neutral market of 6 to 7 months, we had 10 or 11 months of inventory and oversupply of homes for the number of people that wanted to buy them. And what do we know about today? We entered this year with one of the biggest issues, if not the biggest issue in our business, being inventory. Literally, the not enough homes on the market for the number of people that wanted to buy them. And certainly that's going to vary from area to area, region to region, and by price point. But what we know is across the country, we don't have the inventory on the market. Heading into this, we had about 3 months of inventory on the market. Very, very different than the oversupply we saw heading into 2008. So I want to go through a couple of graphs here that kind of make a point on equity. And this shows you the total equity cashed out. We started to look at cash out refis, what was happening leading up to the crash and what's been happening today. And so on the left side, you see the 3 years leading up to 2008. And what we know in those 3 years, $824 billion were cashed out as cash out refis from people's homes, literally harvesting the equity from the home and repositioning that into depreciating assets at times, funding lifestyle, going on vacations, literally using your home as an ATM, thinking this will never end. And what do we know today? That number in the 3 years leading up to today is dramatically different. There were $232 billion of cash out refis done across the country, speaking to the fact that consumers are treating equity in their homes dramatically different today than they did back then. And I think it's safe to say there were a lot of people that learned a lot of lessons about leverage and equity, certainly in their homes during that time, and said, I don't want to go down that road again. And I want to further make this point by this graph here. What we know as we look across the country is that 53.8% of the homes in this country have at least 50% equity. And how we come up upon that number is we know 37% of the homes are owned free and clear. If we take the balance of homes that do have a mortgage on them, 26.7 of those have 50% equity or more, at least 50% equity. And that number, when you combine it together, is 53.8% of these homes, primary residences across the country that have at least 50% equity. And so what we can say there is that in today's market, some of the issues that caused people to walk, meaning you owed more on your home than it was worth and you walked, people aren't walking away from today. You have $50,000, $100,000 of equity in a home or more, you're not walking away from that. Very, very different picture with regard to equity in this country. And, you know, all of these pieces allow us to speak to this question of, is this 2008 all over again? And what we can confidently say is, looking at the comparisons of the market, no, it's not. And what we're trying to do here, and Steve mentioned this before, is give you the best advice that you can bring to the customers that you serve. And Steve, I'll mention this before I turn it back over to you. We're doing that every day at Keeping Current Matters. And if you want to hop in there and join this journey with us and stay up to date, you can go to trykcm.com and get, charts, infographics, videos. I'm going to give all of these to Fiona to get out to you. So you don't have to do that to get them. But what you have to do in this market is be up to date. And this story is changing day by day. Steve mentioned the updates VP that have come in recently that we've got to update now and continue to evolve. It's happening day in, day out. And just like the situation, the health crisis, we know it's evolving each day as we go on. So, Steve, I'll turn it back over to you to talk about.
And if I could jump in just for a minute, I have to tell you, I'm a subscriber, and it's one of my very favorite emails that I get is from your company, because it's the facts. It's not CNN and Fox News battling it out. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fiona. And guys, I want you to understand, every slide that you're getting here, you don't have to be a KCM member to get. We've given all those to Fiona and she'll pass them on to you. What David's telling you is he has taken his time to 3 times a week meet on different subjects that are evolving rapidly. And he wants you to have that opportunity. As a member, you get more than just what we're giving you now. You get that constant update of it. And that's what David's saying there. I don't want anyone thinking that they're not going to get the slides we're presenting today. Those with Fiona will get to you. We're not asking you to do anything to get those outside of being on this webinar. All right. But if you do want to be kept up to date, and ladies and gentlemen, let's just think about it right now. We're ending a pandemic. We have to start business. Then we're going to get hit with probably the most contested presidential election in our nation's history, followed by what's going to happen after that. This is $25 a month. Just at least join to the end of the year. You can quit at the end of the year, but join to the end of the year to make sure that at least through this mess from now until next January, you have it covered and can help your people. All right, that's my advice there. But now let's get back to what we're talking about here. And let's talk about job losses, because I know that question being asked of you consistently. Before we go to the next slide, I will tell you, do not, I'm going to beg you, do not share the next slide. This is for your information only. This should not be shared to the public. And I'll explain to you why in a second. This is a breakdown of who actually are losing their jobs. Go ahead to that slide, David. Now, the reason we want to give this to you is for information only. The reason we don't want you to share it is if you look up in the upper right-hand corner, it shows that this was a survey done up until 3/14. The middle of April survey will not be given to us until May 8th. And that is going to be much more important. The March 14th survey only covered the first 701,000 people who lost their job. Since then, another 19,300,000 have lost their job. That second grouping might show a different pie chart. We don't think it'll be dramatically different, but it might be a different pie chart. But that's going to be much more reflective of all the people that lost their jobs. So we do not want you to share this one, but we did want to give you some information as to, like, who are the people sharing their jobs and how quickly are they coming back? will we know that 59.5%, almost 6 out of 10 people of the original 700 or 1,000 were bartenders and servers in restaurants. We know a large percentage of those are going to come back. I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of having chicken potatoes for dinner every night. I want a nice veal cutlet Parmesan Hero with a nice bowl of spaghetti with some really nice Italian bread with some butter on it. All right. Now, my wife could make that, but it's nothing like going to an Italian restaurant and having that, hearing Frank Sinatra, singing in the background. We're going to go back to restaurants. Will the tables be further apart? Yeah, probably. Will there, because of that, the food be a little bit more expensive? Yeah, probably. Will every server get their job back if they can only accommodate X amount of people per restaurant? No, maybe not. We're going to have to look at that as we go forward. But this is what I know. Restaurant and bars are going to open back up. In almost every state in this country, they considered liquor stores an essential business. So they're going to open the bars. Now let's go down to the bottom, the construction workers. All of them are coming back. I think that number is going to be a much bigger number on the May 8th thing, because now they're taking all the workers off the job. But they're all coming back instantly. We were in a boom before this thing hit. January and February of this year, as far as home sales were concerned, were the best January and February in over a decade. Builders were building again like they hadn't built ever since the housing crash. Now, all those workers are coming back. The healthcare workers, those are the people who work in your doctor's office and your dentist's office. They're all coming back. We're not going to, the dentistry challenge we have right now, we're trying to deal with Ambisol instead of going to the dentist and getting the thing fixed. We're going to be rushing back those people. Childcare workers, I'll tell you, I talked to a couple of people who have a bunch of little ones home right now. They'll pay the childcare workers extra money to come back. So there's a whole bunch of jobs that are not going to be lost for a long period of time, but for a very short period of time. Temporary help services, now we get into the orange. Yeah, I'm not sure how quickly they're going to come back. That could be a market that's going to be a concern. I will tell you, in the retail trade, the stores, we made that an orange category because we saw a lot of people shopping for home, and we're not sure how quickly they're going to go back into the stores. But we're doing research. David's a really, really bright guy. We're doing research of what's happening in other parts of the world that are ahead of us. They're already coming out of the pandemic. And you know what we're finding out? People are rushing to retail stores. As a matter of fact, one of the luxury brands in China, just 2 days ago, opened up for the first time. They sold $2.7 million worth of product in the first day, the largest day in that company's history. So we're starting to say maybe that should be a blue thing. Maybe people love to shop that much, they're going back to the thing. I just hope they don't return all that toilet tissue. All right, so now from the accommodation industry, we're not sure about that. Hotels and restaurants. Hotels and hotels and airlines. We're not sure about that. We're not sure about the movie industry. Are people going to rush back into the movies again? We're looking at that, and we have great resources. Again, thank you, David, that we're going to see exactly what happens. But if we got into planes after 9/11, we're going to get into planes after this. If we continue to go to hotels and see our family, some of the family we didn't really think we liked that much. We didn't want to really be around mom and dad all that much. They're older, they don't get the computers, but we're missing those people right now. It's breaking our heart that we can't be with them right now. We're going to get in the planes and we're going to go visit them. We're going to go into hotels. So that's probably going to be a blue box. But again, on May 8th, we'll give you a much better breakdown of that. So what are we looking at right now? Well, leave it right here for a second, David. A bunch of people are making projections. The Congressional Budget Office says we're going to hit 12% unemployment. Two of the financial analysts, one picks 8.5%, the other picks 7.8%. We took the most dire projection, the one that projected the worst, and that's Goldman Sachs. They think we're going to hit 15% unemployment. All right, but then look what happens in their projection as we go forward. It rapidly gets back to normal over the next couple of years. Now you might say, well, that's 4 years. We'll be out of this year, it's going to be a 6 to 8% unemployment, which is teetering on, it might affect the real estate business. But we've done the studies, ladies and gentlemen. We don't have time to share them all here today. Once we get under 7.5 unemployment, unemployment has no bearing on the number of houses that are sold. We can prove that to you. So we're going to be fine once we get through this pandemic. But the reason we're going to be fine while we're going through it, if 15% of the people lost their job, that means 85% of the people still have their job. Think about it that way as we're moving forward. 85, and then we have to wait for that other 15% to get back into the market a little bit, okay? But the thing I want you to understand is this is the depth that all headlines are going to be on. We have the highest unemployment rate since the Great Depression back in the 1930s. They're going to keep on drilling that to you. But ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand, and we're doing graphs on this right now, but they weren't ready. The first look at one I had was 2 o'clock in the morning last night, showing the length of the unemployment. That's what kills economies, the length. So what we found out was that in the Great Depression, that people are saying, it took 12 years. Here we're talking about 2.5 years. It took 12 years for it to get back to normal unemployment then. In 2007, 2008, it took 9 years of continuing unemployment to get back to the numbers. Here we're talking about months instead of years. So if we jump into that next graph and understand the volume of that, here we're talking about one bad year, 2021 being okay, and everything's good. Back in 2008, it was 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012. It wasn't until 2013 we got unemployment underneath the number that wouldn't impact us. Let's go back to the Great Depression, because all those people you're saying, this is going to be worse than the Great Depression. Smack those people in the back of the head. They don't know what they're talking about. We had 1930, then from 1931, 1932, 1933, 1934, 1935, over 15% unemployment. This is nothing like that. Make sure that they understand that, all right? Get this information. Again, we're grafting this now, and on a graph it looks a lot better. We just don't have that available right today. So now the next question, last question is, what do I do right now? Meaning, what do you do right now? I like to give a quote from Ben Bernanke. In 2018, on the 10-year anniversary of the 2008 crash, what Ben Bernanke did is he did a study of what happened in 2008. So did Warren Buffett, so did a couple of other academic institutions. They all came to the same conclusion. This is Ben Bernanke. My results do suggest that in the absence of panic, the declines in employment, consumption, and output in the early stages of the Great Recession would have been significantly less severe. We got caught blind last time, ladies and gentlemen. It already happened before we reacted to it. And then we had to, bring ourselves back from it. We didn't control the panic up front. We were like deers in the headlights. And because of that, it took us 5 years to bring ourselves back. This time we have to control the panic. We have to get the information we're giving you today out to the public every single day in every single way we can. We have to dominate conversations. When someone says, well, I think we're in a recession, don't argue with them, agree with them. Yes, I agree, we're in an economic slowdown. But let's talk about how that will affect real estate. That's where we have to be, all right? So now I'm gonna ask you, this is what I need you to do, 2 things. Number 1, make a 90-day commitment. I don't know if it's gonna be, and follow it up with 30-day plans. I don't know if it's going to be 90 days. It's like asking Dr. Fauci, well, when will we have this thing under control? He's telling us it's going to be now. He's telling us about 45, 60 days. But if when I'm giving you make a 90-day commitment that we'll be back the way we normally, or at least close to normally the way we do it, we might be wearing masks. We might be still doing open houses, 1 person at a time. All right. But we'll be back doing business. All right, so make the 90-day commitment that you're going to be here working hard for that 90 days. But then set it in 30-day plans, because this thing is moving quickly. The reason David meets with every KCM member 3 times a week covering a particular issue is because that's how quickly the news is changing. That's how quickly the plan is changing. So it's crucial that we stay on top of it, all right? So don't hold me to 90 days. If someone calls me and says, it was only 87 days, I'm going to hit you in the head, or it turned out to be 112 days. Well, yeah, you're an idiot if you think I'm really going to say it on the 90th day. If somebody's looking at the calendar figuring 90 days from today, you need help. All right, but let's tell you what we can do right now. There are three ways you get paid to make money in this business. You prospect for leads, you nurture those leads, and you close those leads. And we all love number three. We love walking into the office right after we get a listing, waving the paper in the air and say, I got a new listing, I'm so excited. We love going to a closing, and whether it's a first-time home buyer, handing them the first set of keys to their first house ever, that joy we receive in that. Well, if it's a luxury buyer buying a condo and there's going to be their first waterfront view ever in their history, they're going to wake up every morning looking out at the ocean. Those things are great times for us. I get that. And by the way, in the closings, we get the check too. We're really happy at the day of a closing. But understand we get paid for the first two also. And little by little, in different parts of the country, number three's disappeared. You either have one hand or another hand tied behind your back. It has not stopped business. Please, ladies and gentlemen, please publish all the deals you already are making. Get that out into the public in a big way. We're doing all sorts of things. Move.com just came out with a survey this morning. We can't report on it because it came out like an hour before this webinar, showing that 25%, almost 25% of Americans say, you know what, we don't need to get in the house. Give us a Zoom meeting and show us that inside of the house, through a video, and we'll buy it right now. Let's get that news out there. But we know a lot of our business we can't do, all right, as far as the closing side of it. But there's nothing stopping us from doing number one and number two. Where too many of us are watching Tiger King instead of going ahead and picking up the phone and calling people. Too many people are watching, reruns of The Sopranos because we have nothing better to do instead of picking up the phone and talking to someone we already know and saying, hey, how's things going? You okay? Your family okay? Let's keep nurturing those leads and prospecting for those leads. I'm telling the KCM members, have Zoom meetings. Divide your database up to your current sellers, your current buyers, and have meetings with those people and give them the information we're sharing with you right now. Let's keep in contact with them because there's two different groups of agents, ladies and gentlemen, in 90 days or 67 days or 112 days, whenever that day is, that people will come out of the house and start looking at homes for sale again. When that time comes, there's two different groups of agents. Agents that will be prepared to really take advantage of that boom in business that's coming, or agents are going to start all over from scratch again. I'm talking to RE/MAX Integra agents. I'm talking to the agents that sell more real estate than any other company in the world. You're the best of the best. Now that also means something else, ladies and gentlemen. It just doesn't mean I'm patting you on the back for that. No, here comes the other side of that. You're the most responsible. You have a greater responsibility than anybody else. You're the leaders in your neighborhood. You're the leaders in your industry. You need to step up right now. People follow you. They follow what you do. They follow Fiona. They follow your leadership. They look to you for answers. I'm talking about people in our industry look to you for answers. The ad that you just put out, that hopeful that we're going to move forward ad, that's exactly the attitude that the RE/MAX Integra people have. Use that right now, because really, how can you differentiate yourself? Here's the simple answer to that. Housing White Powder. How can you differentiate yourself during a pandemic? By creating educational content to keep your clients and prospects informed during these dark times. Ladies and gentlemen, if you go quiet right now, the only people with a voice are the negative people that say, you know what, this is going to be the worst financial disaster since the Great Depression. Your houses will be worth nothing. Why would you buy a house now? Are you crazy? It's going to be worth 30% less in 13 seconds. Those are the people who will be the voices that people listen to if we don't put our voice out there. We have to tell the people the truth, the best we know it. Are we going to be perfect and hitting every single day? No. Are we going to be perfect and hitting every single projection? No. But we're going to be a lot closer to the reality than anybody else, because we're going to give the best advice available at any single moment of time. And that's what they want from us. I know there are agents, your competitors out there, that are sending cherry pie recipes right now. They're sending out the 5 yogurt things. And I guess to some degree, keeping in touch with people there and nurturing those leads, that's okay. But you and I both know the real things that the clients are looking for right now. The answer to the tough questions. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, You are financial service people. Don't ever let anybody think you're not, because the largest asset almost every American in this country owns is their home. Right now, today, the average equity in a home is $177,000. The average equity. They depend on you to make sure that they can manage that equity in their home the best possible, and they need to know what's happening in the market to make those decisions. And just like Goldman Sachs and Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley and JP Morgan are giving their clients the best advice they can, knowing that they'll know exactly what's going to happen, but they're giving the best advice they can. You is probably more important to their the net worth of their families and the financial well-being going forward, because you actually help them manage their single greatest financial asset. You have to be there talking to them right now. That's crucial. And I would end with this, and it's going to be like a little bit of a left turn, so I apologize for that. I want to talk about beer. I want to talk about Arthur Guinness, who decided in 1759 to open a brewery. He signed a lease for a 4-acre site in downtown Dublin. The terms of that lease, £45 a year for 9,000 years. 9,000 years. Now, what did he communicate with that? Oh, by the way, that lease has now become part of their lexicon. It's part of their culture. It's a part of their brand. A couple of years ago, my youngest son, Stephen, asked me to help him finance a trip to Europe because he wanted to see the historical sites of Europe. My wife jumped all over that. He should be cultured, not like you. He said he should know these things. So I said, all right, I'll pay you. Your mother's busted my chops. I'll pay you to help you get to Europe to see the historical sites. First picture I get is from the brewery of Guinness in Dublin. And I'm like, these are the historical sites he's going to look at, the breweries across in Europe? But what he showed me is that lease, the lease that we're talking about right now, is when you walk in to that brewery on a tour, it's under glass with lights on it. They're proud of that. Because you know what? How smart Arthur Guinness was? He signed a 9,000-year lease because he could tell every single person, every one of his competitors, oh, you're not going to scare me away. I'm going to be here for a long time. I'm not going anywhere. He told every single person he recruited into his brewery to work there, you don't have to worry about your job. I ain't going anywhere. He told every vendor, because when you first start a business, sometimes you're a little late on a couple of those first payments. He told every vendor, don't worry about us. We ain't going anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a strong statement. And Guinness today feels the same exact way. They're telling their clients right now, I know you can't go into a pub and lift one and say hallelujah and toast your friends. I know that our bartenders and our servers are suffering right now. But they just put together a 1-minute ad, and I implore everyone here to go either Google We Will Toast Again, or when you get to slides down at the bottom. Because what Guinness said was, let's continue to toast each other. We're in a different world right now, but let's adjust and still be close together. That's the same thing that's happening in our industry, ladies and gentlemen. They're letting every one of their clients know, every one of their bartenders who got laid off, every one of their servers who lost their job. Don't worry, we ain't going anywhere. We got your back. That's what you have to communicate. You can take that slide down now. And you just put me up, David. The reason, ladies and gentlemen, is I use that example. Remax Integra is the Guinness of our industry. You've been there for a long time. You've helped people through personal crises. You've helped neighborhoods through, tornadoes and snowstorms and all sorts of things. You helped the country through 9/11. Like Guinness, people could depend on you because you're not going anywhere. We've seen some of our competitors Competitors 30 days ago we were petrified of. Companies that didn't have the brand of Remax and the brand of Integra. You know, they came up with this crazy name because they didn't think, you know, customers knew what direction they were going in. They had to name something that they could show a direction, all right? Or either further yet, and those people, that company, they're not making decisions by strong leadership like Walter and Fiona and your leadership. They're letting VC guys tell them what to do. Venture capitalists. And you know what they're telling them? We got to make money. You're caring about the people in your neighborhoods like you always have. Right from the beginning and all the way through. You're not going anywhere. We were afraid of different models. Oh, we could sell your house. You don't need an agent. We'll sell your house this way. It'll be so much quicker and they'll have no problem. And as soon as time got tough, these were people we were worried about 30 days ago. As soon as things got tough, they cut and run. We don't. We're real realtors. We're not just in it for the money. We're in it to help people. Now, we know that the more people we help, the more money we make, and we're okay with that. You're not having decisions made by venture capitalists or people that are only looking at the bottom line. You're having decisions made by real estate people. People who grew up in the business, people who understand the business, understand our responsibility right now. In some ways, I want you to understand that it's never been more important to be associated with who you're associated with. But I also want to give you the responsibility, ultimate responsibility you have. Once this pandemic is over, and it will soon be, then we have to make sure that the economy recovers the way it has to. The world is depending on it. This country's depending on it. Your neighbors are depending on it. And the world economy is not going to get better until the United States economy gets really good. The United States economy is not going to get really good until the housing market comes back strong. And that's our responsibility. That's your responsibility. So I guess what I'm telling you is you're responsible for bringing back the world economy. I know you already have too much pressure to begin with, but I'm going to put a little extra pressure on you. But this is what I know. The reason I was excited about doing this Zoom call, because I get really excited when I'm dealing with a firm, an organization that's the best of the best. In this war against the maladies hitting the economy right now, you're the special services. You got to go in first and set the tone. So please, I understand Tiger King's pretty good. I haven't had the time to check it out. I love The Sopranos. I haven't looked at one past episode because I'm busy trying to turn this thing around in a really positive way, and I need your help. We all need each other together to get through this. Our neighbors depend on us to do that. Fiona, back to you. Thank you very, very much for giving us, David, the KCM, the chance to share our message. I really appreciate it wholeheartedly.
Steve, you know, you're such a special, special man. David, you're just so spot on, and thank you so much for arming us with such solid information about the news, about the facts, about what's really going on and cutting through all of the noise out there. You know, I remember back to some of the headlines in 2008, you know, Florida, you know, it'll never come back again. And if you go back to the recession before that, you saw the same headlines again. So having this kind of information, this deep information about what's really truly going on that analyzes trends and analyzes various sectors of the market in a really thoughtful fashion is so important. So thank you for all that you do and for arming us with information that we can truly share out there with our customers, because, you know, I'm seeing bidding wars going on there all over the place. People want to buy, there's pent up demand. We're just all sheltering. And some people, you know, have health concerns and they're not quite ready to transact, but I can assure you, as you said, if we hit 15%, we still have 85% of our population, and there's pent up demand there. Our job is to be positive. I agree. There's two ways to lead. One's with negativity, one's with positivity, and I will take positivity every time. It just feels a heck of a lot better. So let's spread the word. That's our responsibility. Let's get the facts out there. Thank you so very, very much once again, Steve. Big, huge virtual hug. Same to you, David. Thanks to everybody that joined today. Thanks for taking the time to arm yourselves with a little bit of a different twist to what's going on right now. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.